My name is Mary. I am 28 years old. I wake up early and my phone is full of messages from my mother. She writes, "Remember the big party tomorrow? Many people will be there. Be ready." I look at the message and feel tired. This happens every time. My parents have money, hotels, and power, but they do not have peace. They think money can make people happy, but I do not believe that. They want me to marry a rich man named David. They say he is perfect, but I don't even like him. He only talks about himself and his money. My parents say it is a good opportunity. They say David will keep me happy. But I want to marry for love, not for business. I want a simple life. I want someone who listens, who stays when life is hard. But my parents don't understand that. They just say, "You will thank us later." I feel angry and sad. Then I have a crazy idea. If my parents want to control my life, maybe I can surprise them this time. I need someone who can help me. I walk to the park near my house. I see a man sitting near the pool. His clothes are dirty. He looks poor but calm. He's not asking for money. I walk closer and he looks at me. My heart beats fast, but I do not feel afraid. I felt curious. I thought maybe he could help me. I took a deep breath and said, "Excuse me, I need your help tomorrow night. Please listen to me." He looked surprised. He said nothing. Then I said, "I will pay you if you pretend to be my boyfriend tomorrow." He smiled and said, "You're serious, aren't you?" He thought I was joking. I said, "I am serious. I just need one night, one party, please." He stopped laughing. He looked at me and said, "You want me to pretend to be your boyfriend? But why me?" I smiled and said, "Because you don't know my world." He thought for a moment. Then he said, "Okay, if you are sure, I can do it." I couldn't believe he said yes. I thanked him. I told him the time, the place, and what he needed to do. The next day, I sent my driver to bring him to my house. When he arrived, my employees looked shocked. They said, "Who is that man?" I told them, "He is my guest. Please help him. Haircut, clean clothes, everything." They followed my orders, but I could see confusion on their faces. They probably thought I had lost my mind, but for the first time, I felt calm. At 7 o'clock, I heard a knock on my door. I opened the door, and I almost didn't recognize him. He looked so different. He smiled and said, "Is this good enough for a fake boyfriend?" I laughed and said, "It's perfect." We drove to the party together. I felt safe with him. When we arrived, the music stopped. My parents looked shocked. David, the rich man, looked angry and confused. My mother said in a cold voice, "Mary, who is this man?" I said, "He is my boyfriend. His name is Alfred." Alfred shook my father's hand and said, "Nice to meet you." My father said nothing. He just watched Alfred with cold eyes. David walked closer and said, "So this is your boyfriend? He looks different from your usual friends." I felt angry, but Alfred spoke before I did. He looked at David and said, "Maybe I don't have money, but I have respect." Everyone went silent. David's smile was gone, and my parents looked shocked. Everyone was looking at Alfred now. My father said, "Dinner's ready. Let's sit." We walked to the table. My parents sat in silence. Alfred sat beside me. He stayed calm and respectful. I watched him and felt peace. But then David walked to our table. His face looked angry. He said, "You think this poor man can replace me? You're making a joke, Mary." Alfred stayed calm. He said, "I'm not trying to replace anyone." My father suddenly said, "Enough, Mary. Come with me." We walked to the garden where no one could hear us. He said, "This game ends tonight. You will not embarrass our family again." My hands were shaking, but I didn't look away. I said, "This is not a game, Father. I just want to live my own life." He was shocked. He had never heard me talk like that before. Then Alfred appeared behind us. He said, "Sir, please let her speak." My father looked at him with anger. He said, "You don't belong here." Alfred said, "Maybe not, but tonight I was invited by your daughter." My father walked away without another word. I turned to Alfred and said, "Thank you. You didn't have to do that." Alfred looked at me and said, "There is something you don't know about me." I stopped breathing for a second. Alfred said, "I wasn't always poor, Mary. My life was very different before." I looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" I asked. He said, "I used to have everything: money, a car, a big house, and a company. But I left everything 1 year ago. I wanted to see real life." I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I asked, "Why would you do that? Why live like this on the street?" He said, "Because I wanted to understand people. When you met me, you didn't ask who I was. You just talked. That's why I agreed to help you." I said, "So, who are you really?" He said, "My name is Warren Carter. My family owns a large company in the city." I covered my mouth in shock. His family had a huge business. I said, You're Warren Carter?" He said, "Yes, but for 1 year I lived without money or name." He said that he wanted to see if people could love him for who he was, not for his company, not for his name, just for his heart. I didn't know what to say. My eyes filled with tears. I said, "So all this time you were testing me?" He shook his head and said, "No, I was testing myself. You were the first person who really saw me. I'm not asking you to love me. I just wanted you to know." My heart jumped. I felt so happy. Then suddenly, I heard my father's voice calling from the house. "Mary, where are you? Come back inside right now." I looked at Warren. He said, "Go, Mary. I'll wait for you." I nodded and walked back toward the house. My father looked angry. I knew I couldn't hide anymore. My father said loudly, "Mary, you will never see that man again." I froze. My heart stopped. Looked at my parents and said, "Father, please listen. I know what you think, but you are wrong." My father said angrily, "Wrong? Mary, you don't know that man. He has nothing." I said, "Maybe he has no money, but he has honesty. I don't need a rich husband. I need someone who respects me." Then I turned around and walked toward the garden. Warren was still there, waiting like he had promised. When he saw me, he smiled. I looked at him and said, "Warren, will you stay or will you go back to your old life?" He took my hand and said, "Maybe I can do both." We walked away from the house together. Warren looked at me and said, "You found me when I was nobody." I smiled and said, "And you helped me find myself?" Love is not about money or names. It's about truth and freedom. Never be afraid to follow your heart. What would you do if your heart says yes, but your family says no? Write your answer in the comments below. If you liked this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.